Let's talk about your partner. What's the most romantic gesture your partner has ever made to support your medical career?
You didn't even ask if I have a partner to start with.
Kim, do you have a partner?
My name is Dr. Akintayo. I'm a consultant psychiatrist and rehabilitation psychologist. So today I was picked up and told that I would ride with a celebrity in a Rolls Royce. I don't know who it is, but I look forward to this experience. I'm excited. Oh my goodness, Daddy, please.
Woo!
So nice. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Wow.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
You look amazing, by the way.
Very much.
I'm Daddy
How's the Free
Freeze.
Nation doing?
Free Nation is doing well, oh. We are managing, oh. How do you know the Free Nation? Hey! Ladies and gentlemen, I've got a very special guest in the building, and I'd like her to introduce herself. We're meeting for the first time. How are you doing? Please introduce yourself.
I'm Dr. Akintayo. I'm a consultant psychiatrist.
Hey, consultant psychiatrist. Let me pour you some champagne for that. Say that again. Say that again.
Psychology as well.
Rehabilitation psychology
Yes.
and a consultant psychiatrist.
And I also help with health policy as well.
Let me
So
serve you.
drafting health policy.
Drafting health policy.
Analyze.
You are like what Nigeria has been looking for the last how many years? Because all of us know well. So cheers.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me, I have a few questions for you. And the first one is talking about your demanding medical career. By my estimation, you'd have spent at least 12 years in med school for starters. And
Fellowship.
you know, so that's, you dedicated a lot of time into this. So even your school was demanding. Now you can only imagine your career. So talking about such a demanding medical career, how do you balance your personal life and your relationships?
Wow. So in terms of work-life balance, we try as much as within Lagos. It's difficult. Getting that balance can be challenging. But I usually say that we have to be intentional about, balancing our work and our life, because it's really important for our mental health. So for me, I spend my spare time with my kids. I make sure I incorporate my children into my leisure activities, and then I try to engage in a bit of sport. And
What kind of sports?
try my best. So I go to the gym as often as possible, and I go with the kids as well, chasing them around when they're playing games and all. That's a bit of exercise.
That's a lot of exercise. Talking about your kids, as a doctor, I'm sure you're hoping one of the kids too is going to go down that.
But they've all said, no, they're techies, so they're not really trying.
Were you disappointed?
Yes, I was. Although I told mommy, you're too busy. We don't want a busy life.
My dad's a doctor too, not a psychiatrist, but a doctor. So looking at my dad's life, I said, nah, this is not for me. I want to have fun. Let's talk about your partner. What's the most romantic gesture your partner has ever made to support your medical career?
You didn't even ask if I have a partner to start with.
Okay, do you have a partner? What's the gesture they could have done?
Maybe in the past, what's the most? Maybe helping me start my business, I would say. That was really...
Was he a psychiatrist too?
No, it was in finance, but starting my business, getting my space for my practice, we got that space on Valentine's Day. So I don't know if it was intentional, but maybe that's the nicest thing my ex did for me.
Oh, awesome.
We're bullies, so don't ask about current.
Bullies. Okay. I'll keep that. But you see, when I understand when lawyers say they practice, when I say doctors, when the doctors say they practice, it scares me because I mean, you're using me to practice. I'm joking.
This is the practice. You get better with time.
Scary though. I was watching a documentary and they were asking psychiatrists, how many people have you cured? And one psychiatrist that had been at work for 40 years said he has only cured one person. I'm like, hey, indeed, this is practice. What's the best health advice you've ever received and from whom?
Drink lots of water.
Hey.
I hear that every time, and I tell people to.
How much water do you drink?
I can do above 2 liters a day. I try to remind myself often to drink more. I would advise you to do the same as well.
I do about 1.5. I'm one of those people that doesn't like the taste of water, but I just force. There's a bottle of water there, so I just have to drink it. Sometimes I do 3 when the Hamatan is really Hamataning, you know. But normally my 1.5.
Water is life.
Yeah. Let's talk about your gender. What's the most important health issue you think women should be aware of? And do you think there's enough awareness in this regard?
Okay, so I'll talk about 2 issues, 2 conditions. In mental health, I would say postpartum depression, postpartum issues. A lot of times we brush these issues. The mothers that come from Mungo are not very familiar with postpartum issues. So find a lot of time they give this young moms problems. So they get the mother-in-laws from hell, because they don't really understand what these young women are going through. So I would first say postpartum issues. We have postpartum blues, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, and in severe cases, postpartum psychosis. So, but these are conditions I believe that couples should be aware of. So I believe that this should be incorporated in premarital counseling. So in premarital counseling, you shouldn't just be focused on other conditions. They talk about things like HIV and other stuff, STDs and things, but they don't talk about the possibility of the mom developing issues like postpartum blues or depression that can then go on to affect the marriage on the long term and even the welfare of the kids. So for me, that's one. I wish we could create more awareness around this. And then the other will be cervical cancer. I'm very big on cervical cancer, women being more aware, women getting vaccinated early, so that they can protect themselves. But that is actually sexually transmitted most of the time. It's a cause for concern. So I believe women should be very aware, make sure they get vaccinated early, and go for regular testing as well.
Pap smears and all.
Yes.
As a mother yourself, were you did you have postpartum depression? And if you did, how did you deal with it? At least you will know you had it because you are the doctor that.
So we said that between 70 to 80% of new moms develop postpartum blues.
What's the difference between blues, depression, and psychosis? I know all out weary.
Yes, okay. So psychosis is
hallucination.
The cause that's easily recognizable because when it occurs right from the hospital. So the young lady puts to bed, and right after childbirth, within the first few days after, she's not herself, she's talking incoherently, misbehaving, trashing the whole place and all that. So you can't miss postpartum psychosis. Within 24, 48 hours from childbirth, it's very obvious, and it's not as common. Okay. So that's that. Then we have postpartum blues, which we usually attribute to the stress of early childbirth. The woman gives birth, she's not really as bubbly as she should be. So by the time you get into that few days or 1 week when we do the naming, she's not as bubbly or optimistic as she should be. Energy levels are a bit low. But you find that with that, over the course of the month or the week, it picks up. So in a short time, she gets herself back and she's more energetic and all that. So that's blue. So it would spontaneously resolve, in time. But in women that don't resolve, so we have that postpartum blues transitioning into postpartum depression. So you find that instead of it spanning just 1 week, it's now dragging into 1 month, 2 months. So she's always tired. She's weepy, she's not really interested. Visitors come every day to see the baby. She's not interested in seeing the visitors. She'd rather be isolated, Appetite might be poor, sleep might be poor as well. So she's not sleeping at night because she's breastfeeding the baby, So those are things that we can easily overlook. Oh, new mom is not sleeping. We overlook it and say, oh, it's the baby, But when it drags for too long and the woman becomes moody, she's weepy, she's lethargic, symptoms like that creeping. And in some severe cases, can actually be suicidal, in very severe cases. So we see it, postpartum depression dragging, but a lot of times the moms were attributed to she being a lazy mom. Oh, you're lazy. In my own time, I had it when I happened to bed. I was in the kitchen. I pounded yam for my mother-in-law. They say all those things, but they don't. So when I would say that the layman way of identifying postpartum depression is when a woman that was naturally hardworking prior to childbirth now suddenly seems lazy after childbirth. Instead of tagging the person as lazy, that should be like a suspicious sign, and a need to probe a bit further and find out if there's something. So laziness is one of those layman symptoms you can easily pick up in someone that has postpartum depression. Then we have postpartum anxiety. Some people become more anxious than usual, but that is seeing people that are anxiety prone. So people that are naturally anxiety prone, you see that from childhood, the phobias, the panicky. So you see that they're just like that. They just carry themselves on. But post-pregnancy, they now realize that they're more anxious than usual. They might have panic attacks. They might have so just more anxious than usual, less sleep, and more nervous, more edgy, stuff like that. So those are some of those symptoms to look out for.
Which one did you have?
This interview is not, but is it about me?
No, but I might as well do it.
Postpartum blues very, very, very hormonal. So I remember after my second and third pregnancies, I remember feeling low after the pregnancy, feeling very lethargic, extremely lethargic. So with my children, I had cesarean section, and
does it make it better or worse?
It actually makes it worse because it's the pain. So you're not even sure if it's the discomfort from the procedure you're dealing with, or if there's something else. Unlike a woman that gives birth spontaneously, that would bounce back faster than. So that's another. So I know there's some body of research going on in terms of looking at women that have had cesarean section and the likelihood of postpartum depression in women like that because of the discomfort that comes with the procedure. But for stress and the stress. So, but for me personally, having had CS and the wound and trying to heal and then trying to cater to my baby and all that, I know it was quite heavy or tough for me. And back then I was still in training as well. So I'd had probably just 4 weeks, had a baby, but I only had 4 weeks to recuperate and go back to work. So that, for me, childbirth was always like a bit challenging because of all those dynamics, But we thank God that we're here today, Thank God. And I thank God I'm past childbearing age. So
you said these are women-related issues. I'll tell you a joke. I remember a friend of mine came to me and said he lost his dad. I said, to what? He said, cancer. I said, which one? He said, cervical cancer.
No, that's not possible.
Of course it's not. That's the joke there. However, postpartum depression seems to affect men too these days, because all of a sudden he has to deal with his wife who's lazy or who's acting out of character, and there's a new baby that's screaming 24 hours. He's got work. So what advice do you have for men? How do they deal with their issues so they don't break down, and how do they support their wives after childbirth?
So men can also come down with depression after childbirth as well. Surprisingly so, what? Very real, very, very true. I don't believe I have a name for it. Is it Covard syndrome or something? I think it's Covard syndrome. But men do come down with depression. And the first solution to every problem is awareness. You will have to be aware that there's a problem for you to find a solution to it. So I hope that, at least now you mentioned it, I hope a few more men are aware, that when after the childbirth, the man is also feeling low, feeling lethargic, edgy, irritable, becoming lazy, in quotes, or having sleep issues and all that. It's also very possible that a new dad, or with every childbirth, the dad can also be down with depression. And I would say first way to the solution is awareness. So once those symptoms come in, now that we know, you check yourself. Once you've had a child, is there a change in my behavior? Is there a change in my spouse's behavior, my partner's behavior? we should be aware. When we notice these things, we seek for help. It's very important. We seek for the help and see how we can address it early. I usually say mental health issues are like cancer. Once you identify them early and manage early, your chances of making a full recovery is most very likely. Unlike if you allow it drag for too long, it remains undiagnosed, untreated. That way, there are more devastating consequences as you go on, and it's harder to amend these problems when they now start to creeping as a consequence of the mental health state. So, awareness, seek for help, and once you get the help, they make sure they access the help and use the help. Very important.
You use the word lazy a lot. Is laziness a sign of mental health issues?
So I'm using laziness as a layman's view.
Mm.
Laziness as a layman's view can be interpreted as a mental health professional as something else. So laziness could look like procrastination. Someone procrastinating can come across as lazy. And the person procrastinating might procrastinate for several reasons. Might procrastinate because they're having trouble focusing. Might procrastinate because they're lethargic. Might procrastinate because they're distracted. So many things can, but someone looking at procrastination from the outside, it will look like laziness. And in severe conditions, there's some condition we call apathy. A person can be apathetic where there's a total lack of drive or motivation for everything and anything, so you practically have to force the person to do the very, very basic things, from taking a bath to brushing their teeth to doing the basic things that every normal person should do. But that is like an extreme version, yes. So laziness from the outside is interpreted as something else for us as mental health professionals.
That's why I asked.
Yeah. What
inspired you to pursue a career in medicine, and what has been the most rewarding part of your journey?
So I was one of those children that did what daddy said I should do.
Oh, so your dad's a doctor?
No, funny no. I wanted to be a computer engineer. That was when I went to my JAM office. I wrote on my JAM form initially, in school. But okay, let me take you back to my school. So I attended Queen's College, Yaba. And I remember they used to ask us, once we get to like SS2, they want everybody to put their choice of career, and then they go for career counseling and stuff. And when I filled my form, I wrote, I want to be an astronaut. And they called me to the staff meeting. They held a meeting on my case, like, you must be nuts.
What?
I had this obsession or this love for that NASA, the whole NASA thing. I just wanted to experience it, And they said, madam, forget that one. There's nothing like that in this country. Oh yeah, change that thing now. They looked at my grades and said, you should be a doctor. And I said, okay, go. I'll go with computer engineering. I'll go. So they now put computer engineering. So they prepared me for a career in engineering. But when I got home, my dad was like, no, you can be a doctor. You're nurturing, you're caring. So he was looking more at my traits, my personality traits, like, oh, you're very caring, you're very nurturing. You could either be a doctor or a nurse, but I think you should be a doctor. So I just went with my daddy knows best. So I went with what daddy said,
For the first time, I agree with you. Your dad actually
was right.
My dad wanted me to be a doctor. That didn't work. That didn't quite work out.
Thank you. Most rewarding for me will be when I see my patients do well. I love it. I love it when.
How many have you cured?
I have quite a number. I've been doing this for 20 years now.
So you can see that, because most psychiatrists say there's really no cure, it's just management.
Yeah, we manage, but even in managing, you can do well. So people go into remission. They're in states of remission and they're doing well. They get married, they have children, they lead a fulfilling life. So people do get into a state of remission. So it's possible. Yes.
What's your worst case that actually had a great result, a case that most people thought was hopeless?
From the beginning, or now that I own a practice?
From the very beginning.
I remember when I was in training, there was a vagrant on the road. The people
Mad person,
pack things and eat on the road. And a good Samaritan had brought this individual to the government. I was on call that day. I was the emergency doctor on duty. And they brought that patient in. And the patient was incoherent, was unaware of his surroundings, was clearly off.
They lose.
Anyway, we started treatment and stuff. And then within, I think 4 months or 5 months, he regained himself. Knew his name and could now identify it. So he was able to identify his sister's name. So he gave us his, and then we traced the sister via Facebook. And then she showed us, she was a student in Ife, and then she showed up one day. And then we had an interview, and she was in tears because she said this young man had been in this state since he was about 12, 13. and just left home. You know how you just leave home in tatters and start living in an uncompleted building. And the mom would always go there and drop food because she didn't want him to pick from the dust. But despite that, he would still eat from the bin anyways. And the parents watched that. They would drag him from there, take him to different homes, herbal homes, traditional, whatever. When he leaves the home, he's going back on the streets. Nothing ever worked, until they passed away. It got to a point where they just believed that it was lost to the family. So when she saw him and he called her name and he's like, "Is this you?" And he could remember his name, she burst out in tears. She was emotional. And we were all emotional, in fact, because it was a case that for them, it was totally hopeless. But now, there was some level, and she just wished her parents were still alive to experience. Yes. So for me, that has never left me. That experience has just never left me.
How is he now? Did he follow?
We did, and we discharged, and I'm sure she's took care of him. Yeah, but it's just some case that I never forgot. But now that I own a practice and I do a lot of addiction care, for me personally now, I've had clients that have been to so many rehabs. So you have clients that have been to rehab in Kenya, in Ghana, in the US. They've probably been to like 10 rehabs in Lagos, and they're like, the family already lost hope, and they're like, someone like, okay, there's a new rehab. There's this new fresh doctor. Go and try her and see there's something different, So I had a client like that a few years back, about 3 years ago. And it was one of those kind of clients that had been everywhere. I think he counted about 9 rehabs. So we're the 10th, And when they came in, I must tell you, they were totally, the family was hopeless. They're like, there's not, forget, this one is a spiritual problem. We know the source. We know the shrine where the sacrifice was done. Just go and appease the gods and all that. But I saw a pattern, I saw like, they automatically attributed the problem to an external source. Like
spirituality.
Oh my God, that is inflicting him because the father worshipped that God at the time. But for me, I looked at the clients and I was like, do you want to get well? Do you want it? And he said, yes, I want. But I think my family is right. And I know we're going to shift that focus from your family and what your family believes in to you and see how you can take charge of your illness. This is an illness. Addiction is a disease. You need to take charge of this illness, and come to understand that you're the master of your fate. So that was the work we had. It was tedious, but we did it. Every time we had a session, every time we had family therapy, that issue. So it wasn't just me trying to correct the thinking of my patient. I also
have to correct the thinking of the
family members. Exactly. I had to, because sometimes your patient will be making progress when they have the meeting.
The family will come back and say, Juju.
Yeah, thank God. He was with us for over almost a year, 9 months, 10 months. But I'm so happy. He's one of the kids. Whenever he puts me on his DP and he's proud of me, it's like, my doctor, I'm so proud, because this is 4 years on and he's still doing well. Then his family had broken down. The wife left him, the children left him, because everybody just thought it was a hopeless case.
And it was an addiction case.
It was an addiction, yes. But now they've reconnected.
And he had been to 9 rehabs.
In Nigeria and outside Nigeria. So they had tried, when Nigeria wasn't working, they said, let's try Ghana, let's try Kenya, let's try, maybe it's the country. So this was just a friend that still believed in him. I was like, let me just give you one more chance and see if there will be a difference. And truly, I'm so, so happy that 4 years on, my client calls me on his birthdays. He always sends me his pictures. My birthdays, he says, he's always putting on his DP and all that. But I'm so, so happy. That's one of my most celebrated cases.
Wow.
I'm so happy. Yeah.
Let's talk about addictions, especially drug addictions, and especially the new drug, crystal meth. I wouldn't say it's new, but it's one of the drugs that is affecting our youth. It takes so long to recover from those drugs. What is your take? And sometimes one of the reasons why they'll say, I've taken him to rehab, he's been there 4 months, he's been there 3 months, he's been there 6 months. What do you advise?
So I say that addiction is a disease. When it comes to the drugs of abuse, we have so many. Listed in the UNODC, the trafficking agencies and all that. They can list over 2,000 drugs. Some don't even have names. They just have chemical names. So in terms of drug of addiction, I can tell you there's so many of them. In the north, they use drugs that don't even have names. They just capsule compounds, and they're addicted to stuff like that. So when you even bring them to the hospital, you can't even identify the chemical. Or you just look out for the signs in the individual, because your drugs can either be stimulants, they can be depressants, it can be hallucinogens or inhalants. So when, depending on what manifestation the person is presenting with, you can, even if you don't know the chemical, you can decipher what the person might be saying. I don't need to know whether you're on crystal meth or tramadol or whatever. Just from the little things symptoms I look out for, I have an idea of what category you fall into, because that's important for me, because I need to know what you're using so I know how to prepare your detoxification. The first stage of rehabilitation is detox. So I need to detox you, but in order to detox you, I know what to do. I need to know what drug you're on. But a lot of times we might not get that information, so I work with the signs I see, the symptoms and the signs, and that helps me carve a path or a craft, design my craft or design my treatment plan. That's the word, So, so in terms of drugs, now there's so many. So I don't want us to focus on any particular drug. But the truth is that addiction is a disease, and the more a person uses this addictive substance, it rewires the brain.
It rewires
the brain. So it alters the functioning of certain parts of the brain, and that's why you see that the person just, at the end of the day, they're just focused on that. There might be so much going on around them. There's so much to live for, but they are focused on that because the drug has altered the way the brain works. There's something we call the dopamine pathway and the pleasure pathway and all that. It just totally alters. So I'll just do a brief breakdown of that, the biology. So the way God has designed us, we release dopamine whenever we feel good. You're having your favorite meal, you release maybe a dose of dopamine, 20 units of dopamine. That's how God has designed it. You're doing your favorite activity, you release 20 units. That's how God has designed it. Well, with this hard drugs, they boost the dopamine level to thousands, to levels that are beyond. So that's the euphoria that they feel, because it boosts that dopamine beyond the normal human capacity. And that's why every time a person gets euphoria, it's always a memorable experience. It's like, whoa, this is different.
I need to go back there.
Dopamine rush. Yes, it's like, whoa. Now, what science is telling us that there are some people that inherently have a deficit in their dopamine pathway. But we can't tell who is in that category because it's something within the brain. It's difficult to open up the brain and do research. So there hasn't been a lot of research within the brain or like other organs of the body, But what we know for sure now is that some individuals are born with an inherent dopamine deficit. So that's why some people say addiction seems to run in families. Or somebody has an addictive personality. They do this, they're gambling, they're using alcohol, they get addicted, they use this one, they get addicted. Some people will believe that, okay, that's why that's why we now start to think of spiritual. But science is also saying that there's a deficit in the way the brain is structured in that individual, in the dopamine pathway. And that's why when the person finds just pleasure, they're just grabbing everything, and they seem to be, in terms of addiction, they seem to be spread out across different addictions, and it's so difficult to manage. So that's what science is saying. So we hope that in time, in future, there'll be more research that now helps us correct, okay, there's this deficit, how do we then correct this deficit in the pathway? Just like how we've had with sickle cell over time. It's research that really helps. So the world needs professors.
Do you believe?
Encourage more professors,
encourage professors.
Academicians.
Do you believe that there could be a spiritual undertone for drug addiction?
So I'm a Christian, and I deep within, I believe that everything in the physical starts from the spiritual, truly, because we're spiritual beings. We're all spiritual beings. However, I will not attribute a man's afova spiritual means, because the first time you tried it, when your friends nudged you, you made that decision. I was nudged at some point to try drugs as well, but I declined, So we all at some point probably were pressured to try one or two things, but we made that decision partly due to our personality types and the circumstances at that time. We make those decisions. So in that moment when you made that, it was your decision to try it. And maybe if it didn't work, because you find some people, they tried the first time, it didn't work out well, you try it again. You try it again because they're trying to please their friends until they now get it right. There was no devil pushing you to try it again and try it again. It was a decision you made on your own. But when the addiction now really sets in and the person loses control, a lot of times we attribute it to spiritual, but sometimes there could be comorbid issues. comorbid mental health issues going on.
That were never really diagnosed.
Identified. So the person is dealing with depression now. And every time they drink, they feel happy. Depression seems to
Dopamine pathway.
it seems to be the treatment for the depression now. Because every time I drink, I'm happy. Of course, the person will drink some more. Now, if we focus on the addiction in that individual, we don't search for the underlying issue, which is the depression, and address it, the person will continue to drink. Yeah. It reminds me of another case. I have another very interesting success story. I was a sailor for many years, and was addicted to, drugs, lost touch with his family and all that, and came for treatment, and when we stripped up everything, I just saw that this guy was depressed. And we treated for depression. I can tell you, it should be maybe 5 or 6 years on. Like, this guy is doing fantastically well. He's married, had children, calls me from time to time. We've hung out on several locations with his family, and I'm so happy. But I remember that case vividly because when we stripped off all the drugs, we just saw that he was depressed, and he had been depressed for a very long time. And once we addressed the depression, put him on antidepressants, he picked up, and he's been doing very well. So addressing the underlying cause of the illness or the issue, usually once you're able to identify, the key is identifying it. The key is that once you are able to identify it and address it truly, there's usually a difference. Sometimes so many conditions, people come with so many conditions, but you find that in life, when people are dealing with certain things, especially when they're mental health issues, they seek for solutions. So there could be something wrong on the inside. You can't put a finger on it, but you're like, there's something
just not
right.
complete.
There's something not right. So now someone now offers you something, and the thing that makes you happier or more focused, you will naturally just start using that because it seems to be solving the problem. And then addiction now sets in. But like I said, once you strip that off and you address the underlying issue, a lot of times we make good outcomes.
A quick case scenario. A person was brought to me. He'd been on drugs for 17 years. He'd been to like 5 different rehabs. What would you recommend?
Oh, okay. So when it comes to rehabilitation, different rehabs run different model of
Programs.
Yes, so different. So when you're even searching for a rehab, if you're searching for a rehab, it's important to ask what models they're practicing. Different rehabs run different models. Some are medical, some are spiritual based, some are a blend of both. Some are just like resort or recreational, and depends. So you have to ask. So if you haven't been asked, if the person hasn't been asking,
They were all medical.
Okay, they're all medical based. So the medical based is just focused on the medical part. It's not fully holistic. It's just looking at medical, and with just spiritual as well. It's not holistic as well because you're just focused. But in terms of addiction care, it has to be holistic. You have to look at the person across a spectrum because this addiction has definitely impacted their relationships, their work, the finances, so many areas of the person's life, their mental health, their physical health, because people come with heart conditions, the kidney issues and all that. So it has to be holistic. If it's not holistic, then it hasn't been done properly. So at my center, which is called the Freudian Center, it's very important for us when we assess. We're very holistic in assessment. We assess the person across
a spectrum.
Across the spectrum. And then we design a treatment plan across that spectrum. So care is individualized. Care for Mr. A
is different from care for Mr. B, which is what I always tell people.
Problems are individualized. So we focus on the unique issues of that individual and draft the plan. But some people are able to, once you draft the plan, some people are able to follow through and do as advised. But you find some people come and they know more than the doctor. Oh, it's a spiritual, bring it, let me tell you about deliverance and all that. So those are some of the things that impair or affect, the outcomes eventually. But once we do it the right way, truly we do get good outcomes.
And this is to people out there. I remember I keep pigeons, and I bought a pigeon that was sick, had neck disease, and before you know it, it infected the entire coop. Now the reactions were different. There was one pigeon had it, the wife didn't have it, the children didn't have it. There were some, the children had it, the parents didn't, maybe they were asymptomatic. And we had about 20-something pigeons. Some had it, were very sick, we thought they were going to die, and they made a full recovery. Some just died straight.
Instantly.
Some recovered but could not eat and lived for 2 years where we had to hand feed them. Then some could not fly for 2 years, but after a while they learned how to fly bent. So what am I trying to bring out from there is every single patient reacts differently. Do you think some people need to stay in rehab for as long as 2 years? Is there any need for such kind of rehabilitation?
Especially when they're already comorbid conditions. When there's a comorbid condition, you find that you have to treat the condition first, which lengthens the stay in rehab. So you have to treat the condition, and in terms of that condition, you can't really predict the recovery time, like you said. Everyone recovers differently. Some people recover in 6 weeks. Some people take 6 months to recover from the same illness. So recovery time can be lengthened based on if there's a comorbid condition, comorbid physical, comorbid mental health as well. That impacts it, and also social issues also impact. So if the person is coming out to unemployment, to bad marriage, or there's certain stressors in the house already, that is already recipe for disaster. The person just lands with those stressors existing, of course, that's not going to break down. So when we have individuals like that, we advise they stay longer care. Yes, we advise they stay longer in care.
How long?
Depends on the care. Sometimes can last 1 year, 2 years. If you have an environment that's conducive, if you have a well-structured, holistic environment that caters to their care, they can stay for as long as they need to.
Because most rehabs tend to discharge after 6 months.
There's bed space, there's issues. It's about the government wants, that government facility is catering to the entire
country.
So they need that bed space. So it's not necessarily that the person is already well, but someone else needs that space.
Yeah, and when they go back
to the point where you can go back, let someone else come in. That's the issue. So it's mostly private care that you can actually get that long stay, because it's private and it's personal. Do you understand?
Absolutely. Wow. What's the most innovative or exciting development you've seen in your field?
So that would be my work. So during the COVID, we had to innovate because there was this manpower shortage. We all know about the Japa issues, and then with the COVID lockdown issues, we had to just innovate. And then we went with virtual reality for therapy. I walked into a shopping mall and I saw people with those virtual reality headsets playing games. And I thought about it, could there be something in there that I can use for therapy in my clinic? And I went in there and explored the apps and all that.
That computer science did not leave you.
So when I looked in, I saw certain apps that I could adapt to patients that had anxiety, insomnia, depression, and I explored it. So during COVID, I would hook my patients onto the headsets. And I get people that will come in, doctor, I haven't slept in 2 weeks, and I hook them until they fall asleep during the session. I'm like, oh, so this is working for insomnia, fantastic. So I would explore with more insomnia patients, and so that else. So what is interesting for me is that was just random off my head, and I just explored. I kept all my data. And then coming to 2024, I go online and I find out that the American government is exploring virtual reality for veterans, war veterans, for PTSD. Because PTSD has become like a very big in the neck. It's so difficult to manage. There are no medications for it. We usually have to rely on therapy, and they're not really getting good outcomes. So I saw that the American Agency for Mental Health something, they're exploring using virtual reality for PTSD. So they simulate the Iraqi war zone within the headset, and they're able to. So it's still in its research phase, and I was blown away when I saw it. Then going on into the UK, I saw that the NHS is also exploring virtual reality for patients that can't come to the hospital. So the nurse goes to the house, gets them to wear the headset, and through the headset, they consult with their doctor who is in a different location. So I'm like, Akintayo, you looked at this thing in 2020, 2019.
Why don't you share your findings with the world?
I really do need to.
Oh, wow. I'm so proud of you.
And that's something at the center our clients get to explore. So when they come in, because we're doing that research, we hook them onto the device, they give us their feedback, and they will also monitor them to see the changes. That's something we've been doing.
Funniest or most embarrassing thing that's happened to you in the course of your career, operating room or?
Embarrassing. That's a difficult one. No? Difficult. I'm very bold. I don't know. I don't get embarrassed really. I don't know. I usually just burst things. Try to embarrass me. You might not accomplish your outcome because I might not feel the same. But difficult. Difficult for me might not be in my clinic, because when it comes to my work as a doctor, I'm very I'm confident in what I do. I take charge of the process and all that. But when it comes to managing my business now, in a country like Nigeria, that might be the difficult part. That might be the challenging part. Having to deal with diesel issues.
Don't go there. Let them not come and carry us.
You know the whole story.
Let them not come and add to our mental health issues.
So that might be the difficult part. Yes. Running a health practice or a startup
Running
developing
any
country.
form of business
in a developing country.
in this country is
Little access to credit and funds and all that. That's been the challenge. Yeah.
Let's talk about young women who plan to be doctors and, dare I suggest, psychiatrists. What advice do you have for them?
So when it comes to medicine, when you're medical school, you started out think about the career path or medical school. For a lot of women, they start to think, what career path can I follow that will allow me have time for my children, my family, and that's why you see women gravitate towards certain specialties. Men will do the surgeries, they will go for those heavy ones, gynecology and all that, where they do shifts and all that, but the women will be more inclined to
Pediatrics,
oncology, where they can close early and have time potential. So psychiatry is one of those practices, We say in psychiatry, the emergencies are very few, really. In terms of emergencies, either suicide, homicide. Did you try to kill yourself or did you try to kill someone else? Aside from that, really no emergency. Like surgery where someone comes in bleeding and all that and you're rushed there at 2 a.m. in the morning to go and sort it out. So I'd say psychiatry is it's still, I would call it very virgin ground, because unlike other specialties in medicine where the research has exploded, we still need a lot of research. And I know we're limited because it's the brain we're dealing with. It's difficult to open up the brain and do a lot of stuff. But the research is limited, and that shows that the more brains that come in, we can put brains together and move this profession forward. So for me, and that advising that young girl there, I would say, don't be afraid of psychiatry. If you want to do it. Take that leap of faith. It can be rewarding. It can be rewarding. And I believe it's a medicine for the future, because now even the WHO has recognized that depression is now the #1 leading cause of disability. In the past, we were more focused on cardiovascular diseases, but now they're saying that depression is a silent killer. People get depressed, they don't even know. They'll be saying, God forbid, they don't even know they are depressed. I remember being on a radio show once, and I talked about depression on that show. When I got home, my neighbor came to knock on my door. She's been my neighbor for over 15 years. So she knocked on my door. She said, Yinka, I'm depressed. I didn't even know until I heard you on the radio last night. Now I know that what I've been dealing with is depression. That is how depression is. It's a silent disease. Someone just has it.
It's a comorbidity in its own way.
Drugs for years. They're just not as effective or as productive as they should be because it's undiagnosed and untreated. And I tell people, once we get you on treatment, give it 2 weeks, man. You're flying high again, So just trust us and trust the process.
If I were to advise a young lady, there's one lucrative part of medicine, the cosmetic part.
Yeah, very true.
Botox, fillers. You close early, you make money in dollars, but you add no real value. Well, you can add value.
You do, but
because to be honest, some people are depressed because of the way they
look. Exactly, yeah.
But we need more psychiatrists. We can't just have one here, the next one is in Ikeja. No, let's have a few more. Ladies, that's up to you. It's your call.
To make the field more lucrative.
Yeah. And be beautiful like Dr. Yinka with her nice lashes.
Thank you.
What's the most important lesson you've learned about resilience, perseverance, or adaptability in your chosen field of practice?
So I'd say that resilience makes a big difference in the person that becomes mentally disordered and the person that carries on through life effectively. So we're all in this environment together. Whatever stressors we experience, we all experience these things together, be it traffic, food prices, whatever. But the difference between the man that succeeds and makes it through and the man that breaks down and ends up in the psychiatric hospital really is resilience. That mental fortitude, that ability to be hit by adversity and be able to hit the adversity back in the face and, get back again, But when someone is not resilient, they get hit that first time, can't they break down? It's like, I believe there's some proverb or some proverb about when you see a glass and you throw a ball at a glass, you throw it the first time, it cracks. You throw it the second time, then you smash the ball. That's someone that is not resilient. That first ball that cracks, we all crack. When life hits us, we all get those cracks. But for some of us, we take glue and patch our cracks. For some of us, we use hidden glue that nobody will see. So we patch it, then we hide it from inside. Nobody knows the house. So we patch it, we hide it, nobody knows, we want nobody to know. Some of us patch it and leave the colors and leave the scars and let everybody know that, yes, I was brutalized, or I was hit, but now I'm better. See my scars. And use those scars to heal other people. You understand? But for the non-resilient person, you throw that ball again and it smashes. And they're shattered. And they come down with a condition. And it almost seems like their life stopped at a particular point. So you hear about some man that got sacked from his work at 35. And since that 35, he never got another job. His life just stopped. That's a layman. That's a classical look of a non-resilient person. Do you understand? So that's the difference. But a resilient person gets hit at 30, might stumble for 5 months, 6 months, able to get back up again, does that CV, starts hustling again. Hustling might not get back into the highly efficient role he was in before, but starts to hustle. But that's the resilient spirit. So naturally, we believe that every Nigerian has that resilient hustle, but truly that's not the case. Majority of us might have it, but there's still a few that struggle, with that mental ability and mental strength, So resilience plays a big role in how we're able to navigate through life and come out fulfilled and successful.
All right, guys, that was Dr.
I can't believe that I've left Gabby Free speechless.
Jibuno.
I can't believe it.
Very fantastic session, because mental health issues.
You need to bamboozle me some more.
No. I'm even going to get your contact, because we all have that family member that is going through. I've been through depression once. I wasn't diagnosed, but I know it was depression. I believe I can figure some few things out. I have ADHD. I have anxiety. Never been medicated. I worry about medications, and I believe my case has not reached the point. If my case reaches the point of medication, you will just see me in front of your office. You understand? So we're all dealing with that, and I appreciate the fact that you've taken out your time and your life to submit yourself to the service of mankind by helping us with one of the biggest and most devastating issues of this century and millennium as a whole, and that's mental health issues. Thank you so much, Dr. Yinka.
Daddy Free.
God bless you.
I'm a big fan. Thank you for the work that you do.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome.
Can I ask a few questions of my own?
Of course, go ahead.
Or your time on radio?
Radio.
For how long have you been in radio?
I left radio
at any point in time.
Yes, I did everything. I started in radio when I was 19. I was about to turn 20 in 1996. I started with Radio Galaxia in Romania, came back to Nigeria, was on holiday in Romania, picked up the interest from there, came back to Nigeria, I was still in the university, started with BCOS. I was there for 5 years. As soon as I dropped my pen for my final exam, I didn't even wait to see the result. I got a job with Cool FM, because you see, in entertainment, it's not your degree. Whether I'd gone to uni or not, they didn't. When I got there, they said, okay, you worked on the radio before, you have experience, good. Do an audition. I did the audition. Okay, start work next week. They didn't ask me for. Yeah. So I was now the one telling them that I just finished school. I'm going to go to NYC. I'll need time off to go to camp. And they said, no problem. So it was where I was at work that they were calling me from. Oh, this is your grade here. Okay, you did well. Congratulations. You scaled through. I think I had to go back once to do 1 or 2 things. And so I got to Cool FM in 2001. And then I was like a boy production, general rounds, earning minimum wage, but I was dedicated to it and I believed in it and it was what I could do. And by 2007 or 2008, I can't remember exactly, I got my own radio show. Okay. And that is when the big exposure started. And I had a primetime show from about 2008, 2009 till I left radio in 2022. That's when I finally left the radio.
Yeah.
So it was a journey.
You have left the radio.
Oh, yes. But I'm still on social media. So I do what I do. I do what I do on the radio on my own platforms now, which is a lot more rewarding. And when I worked on the radio, I was doing exactly the same thing, but the radio station was getting the credits and the money. So I'm like, there was a time my show, I snuck and checked the books. Not particularly, we're not particularly allowed, but you know me. And my show in a year had earned about $3 million. And my salary was $3,000 a month. And that was when Nigeria was still good. And $3,000 a month is $36,000. And I brought in $3 million.
Wow.
10% is $300,000. So I got 1%. Yeah, they gave me a house. Okay, let's say it's maybe $50,000 if they monetize everything. I brought in $3 million. You understand? So even if today I don't make $3 million a year, you know, but at least whatever I make is mine. And
maybe you should have renegotiated the contract.
Oh, no. That was the best radio station in Lagos. That salary I gave you was the best radio salary in Lagos.
You could renegotiate. Wow.
Negotiate backwards, not forward. And they knew it. There's a radio station now that they've been owing their staff for 8 months. So shout out to Cool FM. I worked there for 21 years. I was never paid May's salary in July. Worst case scenario, you get it in the middle of next month. Really, but normally you get it at the end of every month. And I was there for 21 years. 21 years is long enough for management to change and stuff. They have their own issues, but when it comes to paying salaries, they had some of the best salaries and some of the most promptly paid salaries. So because it's not like your field, you are liquid. You can leave Lagos and go to Abuja. You can go to Saudi Arabia. They will be begging you now to come to Saudi Arabia. They'll be begging with $15,000 a month. You'll be the one telling them you are not interested. You understand? But you see, am I going to go and be presenting in Saudi? I can't go to Saudi Arabia because I would not qualify. Do you understand? Can I go to the UK to present? You know, so we are very restricted. It's not like banking or medicine. So you need to understand the restrictions of your field. And there's something I said to myself when I was very young. I said, I'm never going to go and wash yash abroad. I will do what I want to do, what I love doing. I'm not going to say because they are paying caregivers more money, at one point, not now. But you see, I wouldn't want to go abroad and be a caregiver because I will make more. I said, if I'm not working on the radio, I'm going to work only on my craft or things related to my craft, interviews, endorsements.
Did you try to get on TV as well?
Not proper TV, but I ran TV shows. I ran TV promotions. I did my fair share of visuals. I had a Coca-Cola show in 2001, or is it 2002, Coca-Cola Mega Millions. So I've had my fair share of TV. You know, I ran from TV. I prefer the lazy life of radio. Radio, I could wear flip-flops and a torn shirts.
I was on radio. I tried to up our publicity, and I was on radio for a while, for a year. I was on Classic FM and Law FM. So I had my show every week, and I would go on the show, and it just threw me in there.
You could do it. Talking to you here, at a point I was trying to tell you that we're going to spend too much time.
Give me some tips. If I had to go back on the radio, give me some tips on how, because I heard that my shows were too academic. Part of the feedback I got.
You are very, very intelligent and you are very outspoken. Those are your pluses. And because you are with me, I don't see it as academic. And because I do a lot of academic work myself, the layman has to have things broken down for them. I'm not sure. There are a few medical terms that you would use that I would not understand or have a clue about. So I wouldn't say you're too academic. I would just say, just put in a few jokes here and there, put in a few life experiences. Those work wonders. Is what I do. Is my trade secret. If I have a quarrel with my wife, I'll talk about it. You understand? People relate with that. I'll tell you a story. I have this very nice red sports car, and somebody said, that's not my car, that I drive a Camry. So I was on my live show yesterday, and I told my son, you can see through the CCTV. So I turned my phone with the CCTV. I said, you should go and dance in front of the car so they can say I have a car. And everywhere lit up. People like real life, relatable scenarios.
All of the reality shows. So
yes. And you need to understand that you are in a field where you're in a rare field. Many people cannot relate to the field, even though they are affected by. Nigerians will rather go to church and let their pastor slap them around a couple of times and get their money than go and get the actual help they need. So you'll be talking over their heads. So how do you bring it home? By relating it to your, do you know that if you shout at your wife too much is a sign of mental health issues? Those kind of little snippets that will catch them and those conversations starting.
But do you think people are ready to listen to the mental health talk on radio? Do you think they...
If you break it down to their level, they'll listen to it. If you break it down to their level, they will listen to it. Even I, having you here was a plus to even me. I enjoyed the session. You understand? So I'm proud of you, and I learned a lot, and I will take your contact for my family members that have these issues that we discussed.
No problem. Thank you. Any more tips for me for the radio? One more.
One more tip for the radio. First and most important, make fun of yourself. You understand? Put yourself out there. Why we did the same. You see, radio is about having a good voice. Yeah, but it's more about having a good personality. Now you could be a shock jock. Someone that will come on. When I was on the radio, I was wild like I am. I used to cuss people out. And NBC would say you have to be. I used to tell people, cut that call. Cut it. I used to, and you see, but because they got used to me, I snuck it up on them. So after a while, they were like, you calm down with the rhetoric, calm down for 1 week. After that, somebody will annoy my face. Repeat after me. I am daft. Yeah. I used to do things that nobody could do on the radio. Nobody could dare. And I would get away with it. I would challenge a Nigerian Geo on the radio, and I would get away with it. So that's...
People just knew, yeah, this is him.
Yes, I was from more of the shock jock. But you can be from the other aspect, because you're a doctor and you need people to trust you. You can't be too harsh. You don't want to chase away your patients, because at the end of the day, the radio show is not because you want to transition to radio, is to bring people to your... So you have to be more gentle. You can be more fun, and just don't take yourself too seriously. You understand? Always remember, on the radio, the joke is on you. So they're going to laugh at you. They'll make fun things. Talk about the serious issues in a light way. Do you know that when you shout at your husband too much is a sign of mental health issues? It means that you could be mad, but you don't know. I didn't say it too. You know, those kind of little things will catch their attention. So the husband is driving home, so my wife is really mad. Very good. You understand? So talk about things that they can relate with, and develop your personality. Let them know that this is Yinka. when Yinka comes on the radio,
Tell.
she owns the radio. Listen to Aproko Doctor. You know him. Yeah, he's a doctor, but he just has a very swaggy, trendy way. You know, he also looks good. He looks like a regular influencer. It's just that he's a doctor. You know, and then he comes and he, does his thing, and that really, really helps. So personality, put the joke on you, make sure the show is fun, do whatever you have to do, and don't take yourself too seriously.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
And today it seems like we're doing real estate investor. Are you a real estate investor?
I would want to be if I had more funds. So, but I've always believed in.
What's your view of the real estate investment in Lagos?
You have to get it right. It's like crypto, it's like jewelry, it's like anything you get yourself into in this life, you have to understand it or you lose money. But with people like G-Text, Stephen Akintayo, he's given me some good advice in the past. We've always had the argument of real estate in Nigeria is not what it should be and all that. But this is the only country we have, and quite a few people have been able to turn a profit on real estate. I was telling Farouk my story. So around the Oniru area, I bought a plot of land for 350,000 naira in 2001. And the area boys, the stress and everything, I sold it for 500,000, and thanks God I walked away from it and sold it to my friend. Yes, sold it to my friend who now bought mine and my other friends 1 million. He ended up selling it for 5 million because of the same problem, area boys and everything. I went there just before COVID 2019, and the property was worth like 400 or 500 million. You understand? I'm like, and that was almost $2 million, and 350,000 naira was about $2,000. So but you see, the problem is I would not have been able, those area boys will have collected it from me. You understand? So you have to deal with the Nigerian factor. You have to be ready to go to court. They will bring their juju, you bring your own. You understand? You will bring your God. You will see juju that is superior. You will go and carry juju. And I couldn't do that. You know. So yes, I'm putting a bit of money in real estate. I'm also watching it and learning. It's not radio that I can talk about. So I will bring Dr. Steven to educate us on that.
So Ali for advice. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Nice meeting you today.
Nice meeting you too, Dr. Yinka. And I'll definitely keep in touch.
Same here. Thanks. So today I had a Rolls Royce Experience with Daddy Freeze, and it was an interesting ride. He's obviously good company and very gifted at what he does. So it was an interesting time. I learned a few new tips about radio presenting and radio personality and communication style. So many things. So it's been a fruitful experience. This is my first time in a Rolls Royce, and I must say I prefer my Benz to Rolls Royce. But thank you for the experience. So you guys should follow, like, and subscribe. It's been a fantastic experience. I wish you the same experience as well. I wish you can experience this beauty as well. Thank you so much for this time. Yeah.